TLDR, Debian literally never said they're swapping over to utils. To the best of my knowledge, it is not even remotely being considered. This is a complete and utter fabrication and misunderstanding of what took place on the Debian mailing list. If you want to know why, stick around a little bit longer. All of this started with this email from Colin Funk concerning unilateral decision-making with respect to the Coreutils package. Hi, let me begin by mentioning that I am an active contributor to the GNU Coreutils. Very easy to confirm. Here is the GitHub mirror. As you can see, they are a quite active contributor, and the email they have right here, colin.funk1@gmail.com, is the same email that is on their account. This is the same person. They are not lying. They are a contributor. I mention this for transparency, although this message primarily addresses social concerns that I have rather than technical ones. Therefore, I hope it is not discarded for being biased. On May 8th, 2025, Julian Andres Claude requested the addition of the GNU Coreutils package so that Coreutils could be made a virtual package that dispatched to different providers. So that is a year ago, and that is right here in this separate bug report. When it loads, thank you. The maintainer of the Coreutils Debian package said that he would not make this change without discussion on Debian Devel. That is right here, not at this time, and not without discussion on -devel. And this is from Michael Stone. Keep that name in mind for a bit later, which I feel is reasonable. Remember that Coreutils is an essential package and therefore needs to be treated with extra care. This change was obviously an attempt to make the lives of Canonical, who employ Julian Andres Claude, easier, because Canonical, with Ubuntu, they have adopted utils, and if this is something that's available upstream, and this is the default upstream, that is then less work for them to do. As far as I can tell, the request to discuss this on Debian Devel was never respected. The only brief discussion of Coreutils on Debian Devel since these events was some that noticed the Coreutils package in Debian Experimental used Coreutils from packages to choose between GNU, utils, BusyBox, or Toybox. This is an important point here. This was never a matter of just having utils replace GNU. What they were doing here, what the experiment was providing a meta package that let you easily swap between any of these 4 implementations. So you can go with the main GNU implementation, but the package would also have the Toybox, the BusyBox, or the utils version. And that package can be found right here. Do note, this is experimental. This is not SID. This is not stable. This is experimental. This is a place where people are just throwing things at the wall. People are trying things. Things that are in experimental don't even necessarily make their way into something like SID. With that being the case, it's still a terrible idea for an experiment. Not because of utils though, because of BusyBox and Toybox, far more mature projects. I don't think it makes sense to provide Coreutils from packages for implementations that aren't striving for full Coreutils compatibility. Toybox and BusyBox are not trying to be GNU. They are trying to be much lighter implementations. They don't have all of the same GNU extensions. They don't have all of the same GNU bugs. And if you just replace GNU with BusyBox, you're going to break a lot of things because it's not GNU. At the very least, with utils, its ultimate goal is to implement GNU. Allowing multiple Coreutils implementations change the features that maintainer scripts can expect to be available and restrict them to POSIX only. People already started filing bugs about that. This will also likely cause many packages to FTBFS or provide different content. For instance, Coreutils from BusyBox, which seems to be installed by default as part of the upgrade with this number right here, does not provide the -M or -S options of RealPath. Their replacement by fully POSIX code is not trivial, and I am worried that this will end up with different open-coded version of it with various kinds of bugs, possibly serious ones. Now pay very close attention to that. At this time, BusyBox was the default with this package, but nobody made any noise about BusyBox whatsoever. BusyBox also does not fully implement GNU. The difference between utils and BusyBox, though, BusyBox has the express purpose of not doing that. But nobody said a word. Nobody cared. Later on, when Colin tried it though, utils was the default with that package. Again, in Debian Experimental, which is not Debian SID. It is not Debian Stable. It is the testing ground for random throw-at-the-wall ideas. The main crux of this argument, though, comes to this. I also noticed that the utils website says the following. Debian is also following Ubuntu's path toward making utils the default. A Google Summer of Code 2024 project improves support of the Rust core utils in Debian was mentored to accelerate the integration. The package is also inherited by downstream Debian-based distributions, including Raspbian, Kali Linux, PowerOS, PureOS, Deepin 23, and obviously Ubuntu would be in there somewhere. If we go to the utils website, though, you will notice that that statement isn't actually there. It's not that it never existed, it was added about 7 or so hours before that email was sent. We'll get to why it's gone in just a sec. Firstly, let's finish that email. It seems that a small handful of people are unilaterally making the decision to switch the default Debian install from GNU Core utils to utils Core utils, which concerns me. I had hoped the plan was to bring this up on Debian Devel as originally requested, but I've not seen any indication that is the case over the past few months. The decision to change to utils Core utils in Ubuntu was quite controversial, as can easily be seen in various forum posts and bug reports. I believe these changes, which seem to be intentionally made in secret, are an attempt to avoid reigniting said controversy. I can understand this, as many had strong opinions, as I do, and expressed them rudely, which is part of the reason I've avoided linking them. However, I do not believe that it is best for Debian if decisions like this are made unilaterally in secret, therefore I'm bringing awareness of this to Debian Devel. Shortly after, Sylvester LeDrew responded. Sylvester LeDrew is the lead maintainer of the utils project, the person who made this change to the utils website, who writes utils alongside some other people, but they're the main guy. In response to the quote from his website, he says, "It was poorly phrased. I updated the wording and made this change here. Remove incorrect info," removing the part that said Debian is also following Ubuntu's path toward making utils the default, and also adding potential integration. Not saying it is going to happen, saying it might happen. And you know what? I might win the lottery. Lots of things might happen. Doesn't mean it's going to. Except a single email, I haven't been involved in any conversation for Debian on utils versus GNU Core utils. I wasn't even aware of the experimental work. Adding further to this, Michael Stone, who again is the maintainer of the Core utils package on Debian, says, "Note that the experimental package uploaded over a year ago with version 9.7-999 is a lower number than the current version in SID/Forky 9.10-1. As far as I know, this was an experiment in experimental, and I have been given no indication that there is an intent to upload to unstable without further public discussion and consensus." And this is the guy that maintains the Core utils package. Now, there are absolutely reasons to not like utils. As outlined by Ted So, I will note that Ubuntu's rewrite of Core utils breaks a number of test suites, including XFS tests, because its outputs are different, and this breaks golden output comparisons. I expect it'll also break various scripts that sysadmins have in production. Bug reports about FS tests being broken on Ubuntu have been rejected because it's perceived by kernel developers as Ubuntu just being silly. Given that some rather the primary test regression is based on Debian, I would consider unfortunate and regrettable if Core utils were replaced by Canonical's Rust rewrite, and that's before we consider the over 100 CVEs that were introduced by the rewrite of Core utils. They also recently had this issue where it broke Ubuntu image builds, and whilst things have been getting better with the test suite, there is still quite a lot of the test suite which is not yet being successfully handled. Some people have said, "Oh, look at that, the number of tests that failed, they went up." No. No. The number of tests that failed went up because they added more tests that they were covering. They weren't actually doing all of the tests in the first place. utils is absolutely far from perfect. There is still a lot of work to be done, and this is why most distros have not yet adopted it. But let's focus on things which are actually happening. This should have been the end of the discussion. It was not the end of the discussion because eventually Julian Andres Claude, who was originally mentioned by Colin Funk, decided to respond. Just for the record, I added BusyBox and Toybox variants and uploaded the package to experimental per Helmut's request as he wanted to explore those alternatives. Whether Debian wants to switch or not is not my decision. Debian has a procedure for making changes, which is the maintainer doing whatever the F they want, and if anyone disagrees, escalating to the CTTE if necessary. The maintainer chose to delegate that decision process to the mailing list, which is their prerogative. But I do not have the means to start, lead, or even participate in discussions, so I offer the experiment that was requested, and if anyone wants to pursue this further, that's on them to coordinate. Basically, somebody requested, hey, this would be an interesting idea to explore, let's do it in experimental, and that was basically the end of it. If anyone else wants to take it further, that's on them. Back to Colin, just for the record, my issue is not at all with you adding variants, utils or otherwise. My issue is with you silently changing the Coreutils package to be utils Coreutils. Your message does nothing to address that point. Again, this is in experimental, which is not shipping to anyone, and also hadn't been touched in a very long time. This is from months and months ago. Also, as mentioned in my previous message, changing essential packages is not necessarily up to maintainer to do whatever the F they want. Again, experimental. If this was going to be something that made its way into unstable, into stable, then it would go through that discourse. Just to reiterate, I had seen the experimental update months ago. I agree that it is perfectly fine to do that. The only reason I became concerned was upon seeing this text on a site managed by another Debian developer who does not maintain the Coreutils package. Debian is also following Ubuntu's path toward making utils the default. Considering that he's not maintaining the package, that should be a sign to you that maybe something is off here. I do not think it is an unreasonable assumption to think that one would discuss this on Debian Devel before making definitive claims like this. Basically, his entire argument boils down to somebody on a third-party website who happens to also be a Debian maintainer said something that was wrong. That's basically the argument here. From Peter Pentchev, well, in my opinion, it kind of is unreasonable. Since the package maintainer said that no change would be made without discussion, another developer making a non-maintainer upload of Coreutils to unstable, not experimental, which is the place it actually did happen, would really be extremely, and I do mean extremely unusual, and it would be a cause for concern, but it never happened. So your main worry stems from a sentence on the utils website, which has already been removed, possibly as a result of this thread. No, directly as a result of this thread. This is a problem you have about a statement that no longer exists because you pointed out it was wrong, and then the developer agreed that it was wrong and then removed it. So everything's fixed. Everything is done here. But another conversation stemmed off of this. From Henrik Paluk. Probably mispronounced your name. Thank to Git, we can find exactly who and when published a statement that sparked this thread. As I showed you earlier, it was introduced here. It would be nice if Sylvester LeDrew would explain on what source is based his claim that Debian is moving to utils. Do you want to know the source? He was overzealous in his claim. That was his source. That's it. And when it was pointed out to him, he removed it. From Thomas Goyrand, I'm sure Sylvester had the best intention, asking him to explain himself when so much has been said about this, and when he already backed off, feels like bullying. It'd be nice if we tried to understand each other, regardless of whether we decide on the GNU Core utils versus utils. This should be water under the bridge now. Even Colin Funk, who was the one that started the entire discourse, says, I agree that this feels like bullying. However, I don't disagree with Henrik that the plan doesn't feel dismissed. Notice the site still says under the Y section, Ubuntu is already carefully but purposely adopting utils Coreutils, Debian is following the same path, and Microsoft offers it as well. Again, this is a statement from a third-party website about something that is not happening. There is no plan, there is no discourse that is happening here. To that, Chris Hofstadler replies, "This site is not a Debian resource. Discussing it on the Debian Devel seems moot. As long as there is nothing actually happening in Debian, let's please just close this discussion without further moving goalposts and accusing people. Everything is done. There's nothing to discuss here." That doesn't stop people wanting to discuss things. Henrik has another response, quite a long one this time. If you want to go and read through all of this, feel free to do so, but keep in mind, this is a bunch of problems about a thing that is not happening. Literally not happening. Like, at all. There is a huge impact of switching to Rust Coreutils and Debian. Not happening, though. It's just not happening. From there, Sylvester LeDrew replied, "As highlighted before, it feels like harassment, and I'm not interested to have this conversation with you. Please don't CC me in the future. However, I am happy to have the conversation with my fellow Debian developers or the amazing, and I mean it, GNU Core utils maintainers like Colin." This is what he means by it feels like harassment. He is not talking about, discussions about utils, the merits of the project, should we swap to it, shouldn't we swap to it. He is talking about people constantly harping on about Debian swapping to utils, which he removed the statement about it happening because it's not happening. Any further discussion after that point is useless because you're discussing something that is not taking place, that nobody is pushing for, that is not happening, that he even removed the wrong statement about over a week ago. Also, for anyone who thinks that Sylvester hates Coreutils and is trying to kill Coreutils, have you looked at who the latest commit's from? It's from Sylvester. Sylvester contributes code to Coreutils. I bet you didn't know that. Now, it is primarily in the context of test suites because he's building his own Coreutils implementation. There's going to be a bunch of areas where things are not properly being tested. There are assumptions being made about how something should work, but nobody's actually formalized a test for it. Just so we're on the same page here, so everyone understands what took place here, about a year ago, a package was made in Debian Experimental, which is the place for doing experiments, not necessarily going to be adopted, for turning Coreutils into a meta package, which then links out into other implementations of Coreutils. utils being one of them, but it had Toybox, BusyBox, and the GNU version as well. The GNU version, the one that most of us are using. Then back in June of this year, a Coreutils developer decided to discuss this and found a message on the utils website that basically said that Debian was going to swap to utils sometime in the future. The utils maintainer saw this email and said, "You know what? I was overzealous with this," and removed the comment from the website. The package that had been in experimental for over a year is still an experimental because it's an experiment and it hasn't really been worked on. It's actually older than the packages that are in mainline Debian. Then after it was removed, people kept bugging Sylvester, the maintainer of utils, about a statement he already stepped back from, that he already removed from the website. He gets annoyed, and now people think that Debian is switching to utils, and Sylvester is the mastermind behind this and refuses to have a conversation about it, even though he has nothing to do with anything going on now, and Debian isn't even having the discussion about going over to utils. As I said earlier, if you don't like utils, hey, totally fine, criticize it, say whatever you want about it, but at least talk about things that are happening. That's my bare minimum. At least talk about reality. With that being said, if you liked the video, go subscribe, and go tell me how much you hate utils and how you hate the Debian is swapping to utils in the comments, and I don't understand what is happening. Anyway, like the video, subscribe as well, and if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon Scribes Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's gonna be it for me, and Deb, I am.
Something like this.